Early this week, when Emma asked what verses she would like, I would like her to chant. This morning, I said, I'm really thinking about anger. I'm sort of filled with it. I see it all around me. And I'm intrigued by this idea in the portion of God being so filled with fury that then Moses intercedes and tells him to regulate his emotions, and he does. It felt like what I was feeling and seeing all around me. And then by Thursday, I was exhausted. Utterly, completely, thoroughly exhausted. And I felt like everything that I had already been thinking and writing about in terms of anger, I had no more energy for it. And I was drawn to a different part of the text, which I would like to read for you now. It's on your study sheet. This is when Moses pleads with God, saying, "Oh, let me behold your presence." And by presence, Moses means God's face. And God answered, "I will make all my goodness pass before you, and proclaim before you the name Adonai and the grace that I grant and the compassion that I show. But you cannot see my face, for a human being may not see me and live. See, there is a place near me. Station yourself on the rock, and as my presence passes by, I will put you in a cleft of the rock and shield you with my hand until I have passed by. Then I will take my hand away, and you will see my back, but my face must not be seen." I think the reason I was drawn to this piece is because ultimately, I think that what is at the root of anger is yearning, is desire. And there is something so compelling, so understandable about in the middle of all of this chaos and anger and fury and disappointment and loss of hope, that Moses says to God, "Can I just see your face? I just want to see your face." And God gives a very beautiful and poetic answer, but ultimately not one that is truly satisfying. I would like us to look at how the poet Yehuda Amichai takes on this portion, takes on this idea of longing for God. So first, a couple of words about him. He was born in Germany, and he was born in 1920 as Ludwig Pfeiffer to a very Orthodox family. And when his family moved in 1934 to Palestine, he was about 11 years old, and he changed his name to Yehuda, Jew, Amichai, my people live. And he served in the Palmach, and he fought for the state of Israel, and he always remained a humanitarian. And ultimately, he let go of his Orthodox background, but so much of his poetry is immersed in Jewish texts, Jewish liturgy, Jewish references. He himself represents a blend of many things. A soldier who is a peacenik, an atheist who searches for God, an Israeli through and through who sees and respects the presence of so many people in that land and their connection to it. So let's look at what this atheist says about God. I have two poems. He is incredibly prolific, and God shows up a lot for somebody who claims not to believe in God. I'm not sure he would use those exact words, but in some ways, I think that makes his longing all the more interesting and perhaps accessible for us. So the first poem I'd like us to look at is called, "And That Is Your Glory." That is a line that is taken from a hymn that we sing on the high holidays, which is a very emphatic praise of God in all of God's glory. And here is what the poet says. "I've yoked together my large silence and my small outcry like an ox and an ass. I've been through low and through high. I've been in Jerusalem, in Rome, and perhaps in Mecca anon. But now God is hiding, and man cries, 'Where have you gone?' And that is your glory. Underneath the world, God lies stretched on his back, always repairing, always things get out of whack. I wanted to see him all, but I see no more than the soles of his shoes, and I'm sadder than I was before. And that is his glory. Even the trees went out once to choose a king. 1,000 times I've given my life one more fling. At the end of the street, somebody stands and picks this one and this one and this one and this one and this. And that is your glory. Perhaps like an ancient statue that has no arms, our life without deeds and heroes has greater charms. Ungird my t-shirt, love, this was my final bout. I fought all the nights until the electricity gave out. And that is my glory. Rest your mind, it ran with me all the way. It's exhausted now and needs to knock off for the day. I see you standing by the wide open fridge door, revealed from head to toe in a light from another world. And that is my glory, and that is his glory, and that is your glory. I feel like I should say amen after that. Right? It feels to me like a prayer. Does anyone else have a reaction? What do you hear Amichai feeling in this prayer, in this poem?
He's feeling despair, of a general weariness, of being tired of everything, and waiting for something better, something that only God could provide.
Okay, beautiful. He is weary, he is despairing, he is just exhausted. And I like what Stephen is saying about something that only God can provide, because I think actually he is waiting for that, and he also doesn't believe it will ever come. And that is a very difficult place to be, right? I didn't even notice you were here. Sorry, someone I love is here who I haven't seen in a very long time. Sorry about that. Okay, recentering. So, and actually that's a lot about what the poem is about. That's a little hint about where we're going. Anyway, he doesn't stop working, though, Amichai. He doesn't stop hoping. He also doesn't stop doing. I love that he sees God as a car repairman under the car. Isn't that an incredible image? Hard at work, knowing that car is going to continue to break and need tuning up, but God is always going to get under that car, and he sees his feet, and it's not enough, right? And he talks about being like an ancient statue with no arms, something we look at and we admire, but ultimately, what is its ultimate power in helping repair the world? And he keeps fighting and working and straining, and then he also is in a way making, it's irreverent. Amichai can be irreverent because he's saying this hymn, this prayer that we offer every high holidays, it's not getting us anywhere. That's a polite way of me saying what I think he's thinking. But then at the end, when he's thoroughly exhausted and has nothing left, do you want to say something, Rita? Am I headed to where you're going in the end? Do you have something else? Okay.
So he comes to love, and he comes to love in the quotidian, not in the hugeness of it. The light of God, the light of beauty, the light of goodness is in a refrigerator. It's wherever we are, where we can see it, where we receive it.
Thank you.
And where we give back. It's two ways.
It's two ways, and also it just occurred to me, didn't think of it, that food is nourishing. Yeah? He finds it in the glow of a person that illuminates a person that he loves. Although it's interesting, if the person is facing the fridge, he's still not seeing the person's face, right? He's seeing the person's back. But actually, that's enough. If you really feel love, you actually don't need to see the face of the person you love. It's a beautiful image. I will just, before we move to the next poem, add, as always, when you're translating something, you lose what is in the original language. And the word in this poem that's repeated again and again, vihi, 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 and that is my glory. In the poem that it comes from, the prayer that it comes from, it's referring to the glory of God. So it's a feminine word, but it's not expressing something about a feminine being. And then in the last stanza, you notice that in the Hebrew now he's referring to a woman. And there's also something so wonderful, I think, about Amichai, because he can be very romantic and very feminist all at the same time. So let's flip the page and now look at this poem, which is a very direct expression of Amichai's longing and Moses' longing in Ki Tisa, searching for God's face. Moses, our teacher, only once saw the face of God and forgot. He did not want to see the wilderness, not even the promised land, but only the face of God. He struck the rock in the fury of his longings. He went up and down Mount Sinai. He shattered the 2 tablets of the covenant and made a golden calf. He searched in fire and cloud. But he remembered only the strong hand of God and his outstretched arm, not his face. And he was like someone who wants to remember the face of a loved one, but cannot. He made himself a police sketch from the face of God and from the burning bush and from the face of Pharaoh's daughter who leaned over him when he was an infant in the basket. And he distributed the picture to all the tribes of Israel and throughout the wilderness. But no one had seen, and no one recognized. And only at the end of his life on Mount Nebo did he see and die with a kiss from God's face. Any reactions to this poem? Does it feel any different to you from the other poem in the way he expresses his longing to connect, to see God's face?
I sense his acceptance of how things have to work out. And since God already told him that no one can see God's face and live, it's fitting that it was at his last moment that he saw the face.
Oh, that's beautiful. It actually just made me tear a bit there. Yeah. There's a bit of acceptance at the end of Moses' life, and when he comes to acceptance, that's when he sees God's face. But acceptance is also something that only comes with death. And I think there's something incredibly profound about that, because while we are living, longing is something that can be very frustrating, but it is also something that can be energizing. And believing that things can be a certain way, even if everything else tells you otherwise, is a necessary ingredient for making things better. And Amichai knew that. And so many people who living during this time of anger instead go to the place of longing and let that channel their energy, they know that too. In a sense, anger is a giving up. It is something that explodes out of us, that causes us to stomp away, to hurl down or shatter tablets, even to hurt other people or ourselves. There's something about it that's appealing because it's a release. But longing is different. It can be frustrating, and at the same time, it can move us forward. So if Amichai, who was an atheist, can always search for God and see himself in Moses, I would propose that the biggest cynics among us who see what is going on in the world and imagine that it's not going to get better, well, we can go to our place of longing and instead reframe that emotion and say, I wish, if only things would get better. And I'm even tired thinking about it, but I'm not going to give up hoping for it and working towards it. And that's the way we move forward. That's always been the story of the Jewish people. Always. I don't know that there's much else to say to top Amichai. But there's more poems where this came from. If you'd like ever to learn more about what he sees in people, what he sees in God, I'm happy to share more of his beautiful words with you. But let's all try to live the yearning in these poems and choose longing over anger. Amen.